At the time of the United States crisis, we have with us Professor Gerald Epstein from the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, and a leading economist in the Marxian political economy tradition. So we would have an interview here on the issues related to the United States and otherwise, especially in the context of the crisis. Thank you, Professor Epstein, for joining us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Just a couple of questions on the issues. What would you say, or could you throw some light on the recovery in the United States? There's some talk about it, even in India, about it.
Well, in the spring last year, they talked about green shoots, but I'm afraid that now they're looking pretty brown. The unemployment rate, the official unemployment rate in the United States is stuck at around 10%, but that's really an underestimate. If you take into account workers who can only get part-time work, if you take into account workers who've stopped looking for jobs because they are discouraged and can't find jobs, you find that the average unemployment rate is more like 17 or 18%. And more worrisome than that, the long-term unemployment rate, the unemployment rate, people who've been looking for many months, has gone up dramatically and is certainly the longest, highest that it's been since the Great Depression. And then you have particular pockets, like in Michigan, where the auto industry is located, where the unemployment rate is well above 20%. So that's just one sign. The other sign is the foreclosure rate of people getting thrown out of their houses and the banks taking the homes over is going on without stop, and it's increasing. So those are just two signs of the fact that the economy is really faltering right now.
Unlike the Great Depression, where there was actually a combination of fiscal stimulus along with banking reforms in the form of Glass-Steagall Act and the New Deal, it doesn't seem to be the political willingness, even in the Democratic Party there, that they would come up with such a combination of these two measures. How do you see that as, I mean, and in which way could this possibly go? Because neither do they have a New Deal, nor do they have a Glass-Steagall Act. Then it'll make the crisis probably worse than what it is today. Would that be the case?
Well, I think things are looking pretty bleak right now. I think there was some hope at the beginning when Obama was elected, and he came in with a team of economists who we knew were quite mainstream, yet they were also Keynesian in the American sense. They believed in fiscal stimulus, they believed in loose monetary policy in a depression, and they did push hard. This includes Ben Bernanke, even Larry Summers, Tim Geithner, the Treasury Secretary, pushed very hard for a fiscal stimulus, for a very loose monetary policy, and they were able to pass a stimulus package, $750 billion or such. Many of us thought it should be twice that amount. But I think some of us felt that plus the very low interest rates brought about by the Federal Reserve, Ben Bernanke, would begin to turn things around. But it's become clear that it hasn't been sufficient. Partly because it wasn't big enough to begin with, partly because it wasn't well targeted, partly because not all of it has been spent. In fact, maybe only half of it has been spent so far. But since that time, and at that time Obama had a lot of political support, he was very popular, the Democrats were in control of both the House and they had 60 votes in the Senate, that was their moment. And now with the recent election in Massachusetts, where Democratic Senator Martha Coakley lost the election, the seat that Ted Kennedy had for many years, now the Republicans have enough votes in the Senate to block almost anything. And the other Democrats are very scared about what that election represented. So I think we're at the point now where politically in the United States, things are really starting to unwind. It reminds me of Charles Kindleberger's book about the Great Depression. Kindleberger said what really led to the Great Depression was that there was this initial downturn, very serious downturn. And the governments, the United States and Europe and elsewhere, didn't immediately do the right thing in terms of monetary fiscal policy and so forth. Then the situation got worse, and as the situation got worse, there began to be political disintegration, both nationally and between nations. And once the political disintegration set in, you couldn't reach a political consensus about what to do, even if they knew what to do. And I think in the case of the United States, and even in the world to some extent, initially there was a sense we need to undertake significant Keynesian kind of stimulus. But in the case of the United States, it wasn't enough, and now political disintegration has set in, and I'm afraid there's not going to be the consensus to move forward. Apart from that, the biggest mistake is the way that the Obama administration tried to cuddle up with, curry favor with the banking industry. And that is what people are most angry about.
Isn't it ironic that today the Republicans are asking or are telling the people that the Democrats are bailing the same forces out who were responsible for the crisis, whereas exactly it's during their tenure that this whole thing started, the crisis and all of that. So and unfortunately that is being used by the Republicans, which is also gaining support, as you just said, in Massachusetts. So what would you, in what sense would that possibly pan out in the political sphere? That would you say that this election in Massachusetts was just a one-off incident, or would you say that it could actually be a pointer in a different direction altogether?
Well, I do think that to the extent to which this election in Massachusetts represents this general anger against the Democrats for bailing out the banks, and you're right, the Republicans have been brilliant the way they have been using this, even though they were the ones who initiated the TARP bailout. They're the ones who have been very involved in financial deregulation, along with the Democrats under Clinton, but they've always been big supporters of the banks. But now they've become the populists. It's being played very brilliantly. And I think they're going to keep playing this in all of the different states, in all the different congressional elections, in senatorial elections, local elections that will be coming up this year. And the question is whether that may push the Obama administration to take a tougher stand against the banks. And we saw that Obama came out the day after or the 2 days after the Massachusetts election with Paul Volcker and started railing against the banks and proposed a policy that may be a little tougher on the banks. So it may push the Obama administration a little more towards some serious regulation over the banks. The problem is, in the short run, while that may satisfy some political purposes, it's not going to get the economy going again. The only thing that'll get the economy going in is some very well-targeted, significant, employment-oriented fiscal stimulus. And I'm afraid now that the Obama administration has been captured not only by the bankers, but by fiscal conservatives who are saying the deficit is too large, and he has now come out for a spending freeze. And it's not just a spending freeze on everything, it's a spending freeze on social programs, but no spending freeze on military spending.